Happy Monday! First Prop Queen pod since coming back from the Caribbean. It is the Prop Queen Ariel Epstein taking you until 6 p.m. Eastern Time, talking all things Monday Night Football props. We got a huge list of NBA props from Jared Block, by the way. Mid-Major Matt going to join the show in about 7 minutes. We'll talk some Monday Night Football props. We've also got some college football early leans, so we'll get Matt's thoughts on some college football stuff. Jared Block from Trinity Analytics going to join the show. He has some crazy NBA props for tonight that he got from props.cash, to which you can still subscribe to props.cash using promo code PropQueen, and you will get 50% off the first month. You guys see us use it all the time. It is so useful. I love it for prime time, by the way, props.cash, because it automatically just will give you that prime time category where you could see how well people do in prime time, like tonight, Monday Night Football. Cowboys laying 3.5 at the Vegas Raiders. Totals 50.5. And according to my friend John Murray, this Superbook out at the Westgate is going to need the under tonight for Monday Night Football. So that is something that we got from over at Last Call Sunday yesterday on Wager Talk, that John Murray gave us that under as a need for the Westgate tonight. You're on that NBA tonight over Prop Queen Monday. Let's have a good chat. Hell yeah. Hi, chat, everybody. I'm not okay that I'm not in Aruba, but I'm okay because I have Marley. Marley's back in my house, so that's all that matters. We've got the most breaking news. The most recent breaking news today is, and yes, John is Kelly's partner on their podcast. The breaking news of the hour is that the Bengals wide receiver Jamar Chase got suspended for spitting. Obviously. I mean, come on, dude. Why are we spitting? Oh, it's Jalen Ramsey, right? That he spit on. Like, dude, sorry, but don't let's see. I think it's a 1-game suspension. Jamar Chase suspended 1 game for spitting on Jalen Ramsey, who was ejected on Sunday. Yeah, and Chase is going to appeal. Dude, you spit. Like, I watched this replay like 80,000 times. You spit. So that's the breaking news of the hour. The Bengals will be without Jamar Chase for 1 game. Unfortunately, the Ravens can never catch a break because that game will not be the game on Thanksgiving when the Ravens are hosting the Cincinnati Bengals. I will be there, by the way. I will be at that Ravens-Bengals Thursday night game on Thanksgiving, rooting on my Ravens. That should be interesting. The Ravens, I knew yesterday that game was going to be a sweat. The line moved a point against the Ravens. The public was heavy on the Ravens. I knew. I tweeted it. I said, I know this is not going to be easy. And I know that the Ravens never play Cleveland easy, especially when they're in Cleveland. But that game was an absolute disaster. Don't you guys think it's weird? I know that there are teams that don't play well in certain spots, but I just think it's very strange that the Ravens played that awful. It was sloppy. I'm not even counting Myles Garrett. He was insane. 4 sacks yesterday. I'm not even counting that. The Ravens, I mean, Lamar was getting balls smacked at the line of scrimmage. You also had a few drop balls, like a drop punt. You had terrible play calls. Again, I don't understand how the Ravens offensive coordinator, Todd Monken, continues to call 4 straight run plays inside the 10. Please. Granted, I will give them credit for the Mark Andrews touchdown. That touchdown run was crazy. And finally, the Ravens decide to run the ball outside with their tight end. Why don't we run the ball outside with our running backs? It's always up the gut. Always up the gut. Never outside. Anyway, the Ravens suck. I know that they got to win over the Browns, and thank God, because if we all had to sit here and listen to how Shedeur Sanders won the game against the Ravens, I would have pulled my hair out. I wouldn't have been able to watch TV today because Shedeur Sanders looked terrible too. I don't want to get canceled for saying that, but it's true. He had 1 great completion that wasn't even great. Josina Anderson's tweet about how like incredible that was. Dude, it was like a 4-yard pass. Come on. The tight end run play was the best play call during the game. I agree. The other thing that pissed me off yesterday outside of the Baltimore Ravens was that pass interference call last night. My tweet did pretty well yesterday, but I tweeted out how under the 2-minute warning, we should review penalties. I know we tried this review penalty thing before and it sucked, sure. But let's do it under 2 minutes so that it's not detrimental. And I guess you can argue all penalties leading up to any point in the game could be detrimental. Under 2 minutes were really, it's like the ghost runner in baseball. The ghost runner they tried to do to speed up the game, and then they take it away for the playoffs. Fine. That's how they ended up figuring out how to try to speed up extra innings. But now Major League Baseball is coming around, and they're going to use the ABS system where they're going to allow for teams to be able to argue balls and strikes. And not all the time, but you're going to have to be very particular about arguing balls and strikes. So I don't care. It's part of the game, and I'm always I'm anti robo umps. So I'm anti taking umps and refs out of games. I am. I love that part of the game. However, we should not be able to call that kind of bad pass interference call yesterday. That should have been a no call, or like Chris Collinsworth said on the broadcast, OPI. I'm not going to root for the Eagles to lose. I don't care. I had the Eagles -2.5. My point is that was not a defensive pass interference. And if we are going to play this little game of ref ball, then we should be able to have those reviewed in under 2 minutes. The baseball world does it too, where what was like a controversial, like they changed that rule because of replay now because of the Galarraga perfect game. Like we need to make sure that we don't ruin huge moments at end of games because of bad calls. And that is one of them. So again, I'm not anti-ref. I'm not about pulling refs. I just believe there should be a way that under 2 minutes, it's not even a team review. Let the ump say, you know what, let's review that pass interference call. The same way in baseball that they can call up to New York to review a close call at the plate that might be a game deciding close call at the plate in the 9th inning. Is it a walk-off? Is it not? Is it a home run? Is it not? They can review that now and call back to New York. That's how I believe this should be handled. The same way we handled the coin toss, because that Bills-Chiefs game was absolutely out of hand a few years ago, where it all came down to who won the coin toss, basically, because both defenses were so exhausted that, of course, whoever won the coin toss and decided to keep the ball was going to score and win the game. We changed that rule. We need to change the rule that under 2 minutes, we do not need to worry about bad pass interference calls that are totally subjective. We can't even bet on anything that is subjective here in New York, like MVP. We can't bet awards. So why are we allowing these refs to dictate the end of a game based on their opinion? And OPI and DPIs are opinionated. Let's bring on an Eagles fan who's very happy that call was not made last night. Mid-major Matt joining the show. Congrats to your Eagles -2.5.
Congrats to my Eagles in general. The best defense in the NFL. That's all there is to it. I mean, to hold the Lions and Packers below 10 points in consecutive weeks on a short week, by the way, because they played last Monday night. This is very
and without
impressive.
Lane Johnson.
He's always out. Like this is just.
But it's still pretty impressive.
Oh, sure. But I'm just saying, like, he's been, ask any Eagles fan, like, he leaves, it feels like almost every game for a couple plays and sometimes comes back. But, like, Fred Johnson's pretty good. He's not Lane Johnson, but, like, you know, it's not as tough of a loss as you would think because we're just so used to him being out at times.
I found a trend yesterday that ended up cashing. And, you know, sometimes when certain trends keep hitting, but this one was so unique that I had a feeling it had a good shot, and it did. The prop was the over 6.5 rush attempts for Jalen Hurts last night. It ended up going up to 7.5. I still liked it anywhere 10 to 11, and he ended up with 10 rush attempts. It's been 10 straight games now that Jalen Hurts at home in prime time has gone over 6.5, 7.5. He's averaging 10 to 11 at home in prime time.
I mean, I don't think the primetime stuff matters as much. I just think they decided that this was a good game to use him to rush, to do some quarterback draws.
Well, he runs more at home. That's a given.
Well, but I don't know if that's necessarily like the game plan. I think it was just the Lions gave them some looks that they needed to do a quarterback draw. And you know you're going to get one or two tush pushes, which are easy rushes. And if you think they're going to win, you might get one or two knees, which gives you 4.
When you're in prime time, you're probably playing, not always, but mostly playing good opponents because they're giving two good teams a prime time slot. And that means that you might be facing a good defense like the pass rush of the Detroit Lions, which just made total sense for having to run the football, Jalen Hurts.
No, that's good. I am applauding you for your trend here. I think, if you listen to Collinsworth last night, Collinsworth said that they're going to do it more as the season goes on because they want him to stay healthy. Now, I think that's ridiculous, but I mean, maybe that's the trend. Maybe you have to look at the second halves of seasons. Is he running the ball more than he does in the first half of seasons?
What did you think of that no call last night at the end of the game?
I mean, it was wrong. It was wrong. But like,
thank you. At least you
my
can be
thing
objective.
But see, I can be objective, but I can also tell you they missed the offside on the tush push, the first one where they called a false start. The guy was clearly lined up offsides, and they signaled that it was offsides. And then the AJ Brown thing, that's not tripping. If he falls over because he's awkward, that's not tripping. That's not a low block. That's him falling over because he fell over. Like, this is why we have replay assist. And we have New York calling in with some phantom calls to help the Chiefs. Like, if you're going to select times to have New York call in and fix things, then they should be doing it more. But like, I just think the eye in the sky sees all this stuff. And since we're betting millions of dollars on this sport, we should be getting it right. And so replay assist should be for every single type of penalty that you can find.
Your Eagles are now favored 5-1 to win the Super Bowl. The Rams next up plus 650. The next best NFC team, the Lions, at 11-1. How much do you feel the NFC is that much worse than the Eagles?
Oh, no, I think it's very close. I don't want to see the Rams again. I don't want to see the Rams again. I don't want to see the Lions again, although I'm not as worried about them outside the dome. Clearly, they were cold last night. Jared Goff is not as good of a quarterback outside in the cold as he is now. Last year he played a ton of games inside. And he would have had the clear path inside if they had beaten the Commanders. Now, granted, they still would have lost the Eagles in the championship game, but like, he's a guy who needs to play inside. So it's very important for whoever plays the Lions to get them out of the dome. They're going to put up like 45, 50 points on the Giants next week. I can't wait to see what their touchdowns prop is and what like their team total is, because I'll be taking the over. They're going to go nuts on the Giants next week because it's the Giants, and Jameis will give them at least one or two short fields. But like, I don't want to see the Lions again. I think the NFC is very tough. I think Seattle is somewhat of a fraud because Sam Darnold, like, they don't scare me that much. But like, Green Bay is capable of beating anybody in the league. Problem is they're capable of losing to anybody. So like, this NFC is really deep. And I think there's 4 or 5 teams who could win the NFC this year.
We talked about playing inside. We're going to see that tonight in Monday Night Football. The Raiders are taking on the Dallas Cowboys in Viva Las Vegas. So let's get to some of your props for tonight. I know that you said you were still thinking about a couple, but you were very high on Tyler Lockett, enough to lock in the wide receiver props last night. Why are you high on his over?
I mean, once again, this is just a classic situation of the guy had a really good game last time out. And he knows his quarterback. Like, they know each other. Him and Geno know everything about each other. He had 5 receptions for 44 yards last game, 6 targets. Last night I was able to get the 2.5 receptions. I did pay a little bit of juice on it because I was that confident that he was going to do it. I'm looking right now. Like, DraftKings, it's up to 3.5 already. So I still kind of like it. It's plus 132, but if you can find a 2.5, that's so much better. And then his yards on DraftKings is 28.5. I think I got 27.5. So it's only going up a yard, but like, it's just familiarity. Like, it's just, they know each other really well. And the Cowboys are especially vulnerable in the slot. And so I want to take advantage of it. His snap count last week was 57% in his first game with the Raiders. It's only going to go up, and they've had extra time to prepare because that was the Thursday night game last week. So I just feel like they're going to have great chemistry tonight. And so giving me a 2.5 and a reasonably low receiving yards, I'm going to take the over there.
How much does Brock Bowers being back impact Tyler Lockett, though?
I mean, it does, but I mean, he was there last week. It was just a really bad matchup because Denver has good linebackers. Like, a lot of guys just don't do very well against them. He was out there. It's just he had 1 catch for 31 yards. I just feel like Bowers is a security blanket, but Geno knows Tyler Lockett so much more. And I just feel like, it's going to come down to the two of them. Look, if you want to take overs on Brock Bowers, I don't think that's the worst thing in the world either. But I just saw the 2.5 with Lockett tonight, and I was like, I got to take it. And look, if he has 1 long catch, I think he goes over his yards potentially too. So that's something to look for For
Yeah,
tonight.
I feel like it's just waiting on the buy low spot for Tyler Lockett to blow up, because it is kind of amazing that he hasn't had as explosive of a season, because all that time in Seattle, you would think him and Geno Smith would connect more.
Yeah, he was tired in Tennessee. Like, when you have a guy like, Cam Ward throwing you the ball, and you have an interesting wide receiving core in Tennessee. Calvin Ridley was in and out of the lineup. I love the Iomanor kid. I thought he was good, and I think he's going to be a good wide receiver in this league. But I just don't think they really used him enough in Tennessee, and that's giving us a little bit of value here.
You are called the kicker whisperer for a reason. It has been absolutely profitable to tell not only your kicking bets, but then when you and Jared after you come and agree, it's like, wow, I feel like we're undefeated so far this season. So I'm curious what his thoughts will be. But Aubrey over 2.5 extra points. How come we're just going the extra points route?
So his field goals are insane. I mean, the price was last night. I'm looking right now. It was like minus 190 on over 1.5. Yeah, minus 193 on DraftKings on over 1.5. I'm not taking that. And then on BetMGM, it's over 2.5 at plus 150 something. So I can't do it. I can't. I'm never going to lay 193 with field goal kickers, because it's just it's too arbitrary. I mean, this could be the night Dallas goes for it a lot. This could be the night that Aubrey misses a 70-yard field goal or whatever. It helps that he's indoors. The Raiders are towards the bottom. They're allowing 2.1 field goal attempts overall, 2.5 at home. So they're allowing almost 3 field goals, but that would assume that they're going to stop Dallas. I don't think they're going to stop Dallas as much. That's why I took the extra points for Brandon Aubrey. So that's why I was looking for that there. On the other side, you've got Carlson. And once again, he's indoors. Dallas is allowing 1.7 field goal attempts per game, but people are making most of them. The reason why I haven't fully locked this in yet is because I'm kind of worried this is going to be a touchdown game back and forth. And so field goals are not going to
total 50.5.
It is. I wish I could have gotten 1.5 PATs made for Daniel Carlson, or 1.5 touchdowns for the Raiders, but that just wasn't available. It's 2.5 now. I think the Raiders are going to score some points tonight. Like, Dallas's defense is brutal, and I know Geno's brutal himself, but like, famous last words, this feels like a shootout again tonight.
It does. High total. The Dallas defense is pretty much bottom in every statistical category for a quarterback. So Geno, I do like tonight as well. And I know that the chat was asking on that Vegas side. See, I like the Geno prop, so I was kind of staying away from Genty. I have my thoughts on a prop that could work for him. Any thoughts on the running backs tonight?
Well, I'm going against Javonte Williams in fantasy, so I'm hoping he does terrible tonight.
No one cares about your fantasy team.
I know. The Raiders are actually pretty good defensively against the rush. The Raiders are actually a decent run stopping team, which means this could be a Dak night. Like, this could be a Dak 2 touchdowns passing night at least. Over 1.5, I think is not terrible. I just feel like this is a Dallas throwing night. Hopefully more to George than CD. But I just think that, and then on the other side, I think Geno could have some success throwing the ball. If you look, Geno's all over the place. He has 0, then 4, 0, 1, 0. So like in matchups where he can throw the ball and find some success, he's had some success so far this season. He had 3 against the Commanders. The Commanders have a terrible secondary. That game was on the road. So I feel like this is more of a passing touchdown game than a rushing touchdown game, to say the least.
Yeah, I would have to agree with you there. Switching over to college football, what has stood out to you as we're nearing the end of this regular season?
Situations come into play a lot. This is a gorgeous situational. This is Cupcake Week in college football, and I'm going to have a bonus article or 2 coming out this week because it is Cupcake Week. But I think a lot of people will assume that everybody just covers in those weeks, and I've found that that's not necessarily the case. I don't have the numbers in front of me, but Georgia is actually a terrible ATS team the week before Georgia Tech and the week before a lot of rivalry games. I'll have the numbers in the newsletter coming out. But they are actually, now granted, look, you have to be able to swallow taking Georgia or Charlotte plus 45. Charlotte's a terrible football team. But if you believe in the trends, Georgia doesn't care as much about this game. They want to win and they want to get out of it with no injuries before a Georgia Tech game next week that they could actually lose. Like, Georgia Tech's pretty good this year. They've got one. I think Clemson has an easy game this week. I think Alabama has an easy game. Now, the problem was that with a lot of these, we don't have a large sample size. Kalen DeBoer is in his second year. I like to look at these based off of the coaches, more so the programs, because Nick Saban would treat this week differently than Kalen DeBoer would treat it. So I'm trying to use the sample sizes for that. Also, with the committee rankings coming out, and we'll know more about those tomorrow night, style points come into play for a lot of different teams. The G5 teams who are in the mix, they've got to win and win by a lot. So if you see like a JMU scoring a lot of points, if you see North Texas scoring a lot of points, a Tulane, like they have to win and put up style points. There's also the teams who are the first or second that are left out. BYU and Utah were left out. So I think those are the two teams that could have to put up style points. So I think that's very important. So there's a lot of situations. Plus, we've got matchups between teams that are trying to make a bowl game and don't care about making a bowl game. And motivation is so huge these last couple of weeks. Some teams don't care about making a bowl game. I don't think Penn State cares. I don't think Florida cares about making a bowl game as a 6-6 team. So looking at squads that have the motivation towards the end of the season is so important these last couple weeks.
Joe Dollar said, what are your thoughts on ECU or Southern Miss?
So let's see. So I'm going to pull up who is playing who. So Southern Miss took a bad loss last week. They still do control their own destiny when it comes to the Sun Belt West Division, but they are a team that has to be very disappointed with how they played last week because Texas State is terrible. I'd have to look. South Alabama can't make a bowl game, so motivation's not necessarily there. The other thing to look at here is participation reports, which start coming out, I believe, on Thursdays for a lot of these places. You want to make sure that injuries are not a factor in this sort of situation. So that's something I'm going to be looking at here. I think Southern Miss might be live because South Alabama just doesn't care. But I also want to make sure when the first participation report comes out that there's no sort of issues that are out there. East Carolina, impressive win at home against Memphis. They were really excited for that game. They played really well. They are hitting the road to the Dome to play UTSA. My question is East Carolina a little hungover after last week? UTSA plays a whole lot.
I think they stormed the field.
They did. They stormed the field. It was insane. I lost my East Carolina team win total under, which was disappointing. But I'm worried about them heading on the road to play a UTSA team that is so much better at home and has a really good offense. I'm a little worried about East Carolina's focus for that game.
Speaking of focus, you mentioned Georgia having to face Georgia Tech in a couple of weeks. How about Georgia Tech this week, knowing they get Georgia next week?
So that's where this is one of the fascinating situations, because if Georgia Tech beats Pittsburgh, they're going to the ACC championship game, which is huge. If they lose to Pittsburgh, they're probably not. But if they beat Georgia next week, there's still a small chance that they could be in at-large. So, I have to go back and look at the research under Brent Key to see how Georgia Tech does the week before Georgia. But I am highly concerned about focus being an issue here. Remember, we saw last week, and I talked about it on the show last Monday, Pitt's head coach said that he doesn't care if they lose to Notre Dame. The game means nothing to them because they want to win the ACC championship. He said they could put 100 on us. We don't care. And they played like they didn't care. They got blown out by Notre Dame. So my thing is I have to watch what Brent Key talks about this week and how focused his team is, because that Georgia game next week makes their season. They want to make the ACC championship, so I think they're going to win. But this is such a huge and difficult spot. I have to see how they've done historically in this situation.
Craig Abel, BYU, Texas Tech in Big 12 championship game decides who gets into playoffs?
Probably. That conference deserves at least more than one. They deserve more than one. Utah's been really good the last couple weeks. They deserve to be in the mix. BYU, who probably will lose to Texas Tech in that game, they deserve to be in the mix, although they would have lost twice to Texas Tech. That conference deserves more than one, but the SEC is going to get 8 teams in, which is really disappointing. So, yes, I think the winner gets in, definitely. I think the loser is probably left out, unfortunately.
How do you approach these futures now with college football because of this new expanded college football format?
I think the best thing to do, and maybe this will be another bonus article coming up this week, is to see if there's somebody who can sneak in with a chaotic thing happening in front of them. If these 4 teams lose, this team could get in. And so I don't know how much value there is. I would say this, there's potentially some value on Marcel Reed for the Heisman. He had his Heisman moment last week when he led his team back. They were down 30-3 at home and won 31-30, and he was awesome and amazing. So I think if he can capitalize on that momentum these last couple weeks, maybe he has a shot. Now, I'm holding a 60-1 ticket on the guy who's currently the favorite, Fernando Mendoza. So I hope he doesn't. I really would love to cash this 60-1 because we gave it out back in July on my Twitter account. So
I feel like that sounds so familiar. I do remember that.
Yes, we gave it out on, I don't remember the exact date, but it was back in July. And funny story, I went home. I was going home to see my parents who were back in Pennsylvania. We can't bet the Heisman in Virginia. So I went back home into Pennsylvania and I put down 2 Heisman bets on John Mateer, who was looking good until he got hurt, and Fernando Mendoza. So now I'm back in Virginia and I can't bet on it. So I've got a 60-1 ticket on Mendoza that it looks good. If you look at the numbers, I can't look at him now. Maybe you can see what the number is, but like he's minus 115 to win the Heisman right now. So I hope that he's the one who wins it. But like Marcel Reed could come up from the back end of this thing after last week and has a lot of momentum to do so.
Lewis Creech has an interesting question. Is Virginia Tech live at home against Miami since James Franklin just got hired as their new head coach?
So I don't think that really matters because let's be honest, in the portal days nowadays, either James Franklin's going to kick a lot of those players out or suggest they leave, or they're just not going to be there, or they're seniors and not going to be there anyway. So I don't think that's a motivating factor. Plus, I can't bet on Virginia Tech at home in a large game. So just think about the last time Virginia Tech has won a good game, even at home. It's been many years now. So, like, Miami still needs it. They have an outside shot at making the college football playoff. They have an outside shot at making the ACC championship game. So, like, I can't bet on Virginia Tech. I just don't think there's a bump there because of a new head coach, because either you're not going to be on the roster or they're just not going to be at the school anyway.
Hey, yeah, that's a good point that they're not James Franklin's guys. So you just never know what'll happen when a new head coach takes over. Mid-major Matt, we know what happens when you take over. You crush it every time. Congrats to your Eagles last night. Thanks for coming on as always, and good luck to those bets.
Yeah, watch an intriguing college basketball game tonight. I don't have a bet on this yet, but VCU, NC State. It's a very interesting game. VCU's a nice mid-major program. They want to run a lot. NC State with Will Wade, they want to run a lot. The total's gone up like 5 points from the open. I'll be interested to see if VCU can keep up with NC State tonight, because the Rams are an intriguing team come March if they make the tournament. This will be a very good test for them against Will Wade, who thankfully scheduled this game and is not a coward like Mike Rhodes, who ran away from playing VCU because they have a thing in their contract that if you leave to go play somewhere else, then you have to play them a home and home, which is a great clause to have in your contract. And a lot of other former VCU coaches did that. Mike Rhodes said this year that he is not going to do that, and he bought his way out of it. Will Wade is long gone from that contract, but still manages that he's going to play VCU. So I'm excited for this game tonight to see what the Rams look like.
Anything else in college hoops?
So I've been doing a lot more watching than betting lately. I've decided that basically I'm going to kind of watch a lot more. Last year, I jumped in and didn't do as well in the beginning. So now I'm trying to get more data points. My Zags look awesome. I love what Gonzaga has done this year. They're starting to play defense, which is awesome. They've already tested themselves, crushing Creighton and beating Oklahoma so far this season. Gonzaga doesn't do as well when everyone's paying attention to them like they are now, unfortunately. But like, this is a really good Zags team that I think can make some noise come March.
Mid-major Matt, we're going to not only after college football season, we've got you through the playoffs, but we've got college hoops that I know you're going to crush once you get all those data points. Good luck tonight in Monday Night Football. We will see you again on Friday.
Sounds good. Talk to you then.
See you, Matt. And everybody make sure to subscribe to Mid-Major Matt's college sports newsletter, which is on theprepqueen.com. You could subscribe for like $5. You get all of his college football newsletters with a bunch of different best bets for the weekend, Thursday, Fridays, and Saturdays. And it will continue as we get through college basketball season. Coming on now, as he does every single week, we are coming on with Jared Black from over at Trinity Analytics and Props.cash. He's got a whole list of NBA props that we've got to take a look at, a lot of different NBA trends. We'll talk Monday Night Football. First, I definitely want to get his thoughts on the NBA. We have not talked about the association yet today. Jared Black, thanks for coming on the show as always.
Great to be here.
Oh, I love that
And
props.cash hat.
yeah, I got, if you can see
Ooh.
it, I got a football behind me too. So I'm stocked up today.
Ooh, we
Uh,
love that. Props.cash, baby. You got a ton of
yeah,
NBA trends. You sent me that huge list today, and I was like, whoa.
yeah, I know. And that I actually had to filter that by ones that I liked a lot more than just what actual trends are out there for the day. We haven't, did I hear you say that we haven't talked NBA yet today?
No, Matt and I just
Okay.
talked Monday Night Football and some college hoops, some college football. We haven't talked NBA yet. So I definitely want to dive into the NBA first, and then we'll jump into Monday Night Football. Is that good?
Yeah, sounds great. I think the first thing to do for those who have not dove into NBA yet is to kind of just give the quick synopsis, which is that there's quite a few revenge games early on and a couple of really nice spots for some superstars in the early half. And then on the back half of the card, things get really sketchy with two really scary blowout spots. So we'll talk about a lot of stuff in the beginning of the slate and a little bit at the end of the slate. But it's, again, the term that I always use is to be cautiously optimistic when referring to blowouts because they're quite unpredictable. But this Denver one specifically is really scary.
Ooh, okay. So before we get to any of that, I do want to talk about the Wemby injury because he has a left calf injury that looks like he's going to be out for a little bit. How is that
Yep.
going to impact the Spurs?
Yeah, they were already pretty thin at the center position in general. They could probably slide a bunch of guys down from the power forward spot to kind of get through this, but their defensive efficiency is going to take a hit. Their pace of play actually might get a little bit faster if they're just going to give the ball to Fox and Castle. So you could see some more back and forths there. But the defense efficiency overall probably pushes them out of the top 10 come Christmas here. Yeah, not good stuff. I'm hopefully it's not a blood clot issue.
Yeah, exactly. That's the first thought I had was it was that same leg that he had the blood clot, but hopefully that's just actually a left calf injury and not something to do with that. But let's get to some of the NBA trends that you've got from over at props.cash. So for everybody that doesn't know, you can go to props.cash, sign up using promo code PropQueen, you get 50% off the first month. And these were all found over at props.cash. So you have a few different trends, well, a lot of different trends, starting with Pascal Siakam, under 7 rebounds. How come that's a trend?
Yeah, we've just seen Siakam take more of a scoring role rather than the rebound stuff, which has been kind of taken up by a hardship exemption in Jeremiah Robinson Earl, Tony Bradley, more of a traditional rebounding center, Isaiah Jackson. So those guys are starting to just take that role. And Siakam's just got to use all of his effort in scoring. And we've seen that pair out in the trends to even keep these games relatively competitive. You also have guys like Andrew Nemhard. Hopefully, Benedict Matherin's going to play today. Take on more of the assist role. So Siakam's kind of just in there to score right now and keep games close. He should do that well, but the Pistons do a good job in the rebounding category, and Jalen Duren specifically is looking like he's probable and good to go. So when you're looking at Siakam, I just don't think you can trust his rebound stuff. Or if you want to bet on unders, that's a good way to go for that right now.
And then Jalen Duren, 36 plus PRA. What's that trend?
Yeah, this one's a good, fast-paced game. We know that Indiana's defense has been overall terrible, and furthermore, like all of the guys, like I said, they've been so beat up that they're getting these hardship exemptions where you can kind of just sign guys and keep the roster to a maximum with all their injuries. So the guys that they are having play center and the 4 and 5 roles are just really, really poor defenders. And when you're looking at where the Pacers are allowing the most points, they're allowing the 4th most paint field goals and the 8th most restricted area field goals per game. For those of you who don't know what the restricted area is, it is the circle right under the hoop. That is, you can see it if you've taken like a second deck view of the court. So that's where Duren thrives. He ranks 2nd in the NBA, just behind Giannis in restricted area scoring. The Pacers are also allowing the 2nd most points to centers this season and the last 7 games specifically.
Speaking of Giannis has great history against the Cavs. What is that history, and how come we're just looking at the points?
Yeah, he just found out that he's available to play today, so that works out well timing wise.
NBA,
It's
you gotta love it.
always yeah, always kind of sketchy because he's been ruled out as a probable tag, which he was today. So with that said, he's good to go. We also know that the Cavs in general, there's one spot. So they're not allowing a lot of points in any specific zone on the court. But in terms of defense first position, the only position that they struggle with in terms of defending points is the power forward position, where they're giving up the most points in the league. And Giannis has already scored 40 on them this year. The tracking stats that we cover at Trinity Analytics, he's basically top 40 in every single statistical tracking stat in terms of, that's just incredible in general. And then you factor in that he has the second highest usage rate in the league at 35%, and is driving 12 times a game plus. Like, it's just a monster spot on paper. And furthermore, like, they need Giannis' size to combat the Mobley Allen Twin Tower stuff. It's just a spot where I'm trusting the DVP, and the history is extremely strong too.
Same with Jared Allen, 10 plus rebounds. It's always so hard to differentiate between him and Evan Mobley, as you mentioned, the trees. Jared Allen getting 10 or more rebounds tonight against the Bucks. How come it's Allen on the boards?
Yeah, I feel more comfortable about the entire situation with Allen, just because I do think now the history is strong. But when you're looking at history, you're also factoring in that Brook Lopez was a part of this Bucks team for so long. They specifically went out and got the younger equivalent of Brook Lopez in Miles Turner, a guy that's a center that doesn't really get rebounds and kind of stands on the perimeter and shoots threes. That's basically what they got in the Miles Turner spot. So what I think that does is focus more on having Allen and Mobley switch off on Giannis, and you could see Allen just at the rim a lot in these spots. I don't think that they want Allen to follow Miles Turner outside, so they'll do what they can, probably put Mobley out there and guard the 3-point spot where Allen is used more in the restricted area to get rebounds.
James Harden without Kawhi and Bogdanovic without Kawhi. Both those players benefit in their own way. How come you're looking at Harden and Bogdanovic tonight, rebounds and points?
Yeah, we got to wait for Bogey. Unfortunately, he's questionable, but he does have strong trends when Kawhi's not playing. So we'll wait on that one. But in terms of James Harden, this is a nice spot for him in a situation where the Sixers are allowing the second most assists to point guards. Furthermore, they're also allowing a top 10 number of above the break threes. James Harden ranks third in that zone from shooting from 3-point range. So you have to like it from that angle. On top of that, not only does he get the extended usage without Kawhi, and Brad Beal to that extent too. This is like the revenge narrative spot of the day, and could be the revenge narrative spot for James Harden's season. It's not only against his former team in the 76ers, but it is against Daryl Morey as well. And for those of you who don't remember, that's longtime GM head coach stuff, and it goes back well over a decade and back to Houston days. So James Harden, I think, is going to show up tonight and be one of the only reasons the Clippers have a chance of winning this game.
I love taking advantage in the NBA of missing players like we are with the Sixers and Joel Embiid. Last year, that was the way to attack the Sixers was, hey, who's benefiting from Joel Embiid off the floor? Tyrese Maxey always seems to be one of those guys. Rebounds plus assists. How do we play Tyrese Maxey?
Yeah, he's doing really well in the peripheral categories without Joel Embiid this year. And you're also seeing that this just kind of affects the pace of play for the Sixers as well. When Joel Embiid's off the floor, we're just seeing them run a bit faster than they would if they were doing a half-court offense with Embiid. So that just increases the full speed of this game, and it's already a relatively slow matchup. But with that said, I think that no Kawhi, no Embiid on either side make this one run a little bit faster on paper. And with that said, Maxey just getting a bunch of rebound opportunities without the Embiid stuff. I'm not worried whatsoever. We found out that Paul George is actually going to be a game time decision. He's expected to play today, but I don't think he plays more than 20 minutes. This should be the Maxey show, and it's a really, really good spot for him. I'd take the points plus rebounds here because the Clippers are allowing the most above the break threes in the NBA per game. Tyrese Maxey ranks second in that category in terms of field goals made per game as well. So if you're taking Tyrese Maxey, the rebound trend without Embiid is really good, and then you can take a nice point spot to pair with it.
The assist trend is also awesome for Mr. Ball. I assume we're talking about LaMelo, and LaMelo get an 8+ assist tonight. How come this is the right matchup for it?
Yeah, I think it's a nice matchup to get it at plus money. I haven't seen LaMelo. Number one, he hasn't had a game under 8 assists all year, and so that's one of the most consistent trends in the NBA. I know trends aren't everything, but there's a lot that pop on today's show. That being one of them, and I do think when you're looking at this spot, at least for Charlotte, they get a slight pace up spot from 22nd to 15th, which is where Toronto ranks. We know that, and so this is the point where we get a little bit tricky here, is that we know that the Raptors are allowing the second fewest assists to point guards on the year. They've been doing a really good job
Yeah, that scares me.
taking that out, but I think we can feel comfortable about not only the role for LaMelo, and his usage is off the charts in terms of that. He's also averaging 13.7 potential assists per game, which is 10th in the NBA. The thing that pushes me over the edge outside of usage stuff is that we do know that Toronto is not allowing a lot of 3-point scoring. It's mainly what LaMelo does when he's out there, and that's going to force him to exploit the Raptors' poor paint defense, which is where guys like Kalkbrenner, guys like Diabate, even Bridges can score down in that zone. I think we're going to see a lot of LaMelo passing up on 3-point shooting and getting those potential assists.
I saw in the chat people talking about Cat. I know that Jalen Brunson's been banged up. I know that we've got injuries to like Anunoby. So Cat, Josh Hart. I know Josh Hart is always somebody I like to look at when Anunoby's out. Those two complement each other very well when they're on and off the floor. But Cat and Josh Hart, how come we're focusing on those two Knicks tonight?
Yeah, this is a rematch of Friday's Cup game. Cat was my what we call our flag plant play of the day at Trinity Analytics. It was mine on Friday, and obviously smashed well over my expectation. I wasn't expecting a 40-point game from him, but it's a very, very strong spot. You add in the fact that Miami is running at the fastest pace in the NBA. It just creates more possessions, creates more peripheral stat opportunities, and all the fantasy stuff that we love to see there. You add in the fact that the dude had he had over a 30% usage rate in the game without Jalen Brunson on Friday, and then you add Anunoby out of the mix. Like, it's pretty much like point forward Cat tonight. And then on top of that, in the 5 games played where Hart played and Anunoby did not last season, Josh Hart recorded 20 plus points plus assists in all 5 of those games. So again, last year was a different story. Josh Hart was playing 40 minutes a game, but I think there's enough guys out where you can feel good about that again here.
I feel like there was a rebound trend as well with Josh Hart last year, but I just can't remember what it was. Like, I feel like there was a rebound number without Anunoby, or maybe I have to remember now. But I was hitting those Josh Hart rebounds or rebounds plus assists for a while, I think it was.
Yeah, I'd have to go look too. I'm actually going to pull that up and see if I can find it. But yeah, so with that said, something we can point to that maybe, and once we do find it, we can look at it. But the rebounding spot in general for all of the Knicks is extremely good. Like we said, Miami, not only are they running at extremely fastest pace in the NBA, but they're also just allowing everybody to rebound on them. And it's because they take a lot of threes. The Knicks are giving up a ton of threes, and that's really the only way that teams are scoring on them right now. And if that means Miami's going to be chucking, that means there's a lot of opportunities for rebounds for these Knicks players. And they ranked DVP-wise over the last 2 weeks of the regular season, like bottom 3 to every single position except for the power forward spot. So Hart, McBride, Mikal Bridges, Cat, like they're all really good rebounding plays today.
Yeah, I think it was the Knicks depth chart. I just want to see who else is in and out right now. Brunson's out, Anunoby's out, Mitchell Robinson's in. But last year in games, Josh Hart, he played 3 games last year without Brunson and without Anunoby, and he had 10 rebounds in 2 of those 3 games.
Yeah, not surprised. He's a rebounding machine when it matters, and I think this is like one of the first times that we could see a Josh Hart breakout game.
And last 2, I guess Larson and SGA. Larson in that same Miami Knicks game, 13 plus points, no Bam. How come we're going with points there?
Yeah, they're starting him, which is the main thing here for Larson in games that Bam hasn't been playing. So they've kind of just taken a slightly different approach here. Obviously, no Tyler Hero still, which is just going to force a guard like that to step in. And like I said, they're allowing a ton of threes. They think that guys like Norman Powell, guys like Larson, they can certainly take advantage of that. You don't need much for less than either. I think you can get him at like plus money for 10 points.
Joseph Rodriguez laughing. That's it. Just 2 of them out. Yes, I was saying just them 2 because I was looking to see the status of Mitchell Robinson, who we never freaking know about, because then it's them 3. So Mitchell Robinson's always my question mark outside of Jalen Brunson and OG Anunoby. Lastly, SGA 44 plus PRA. I mean, that's public. That's high. How come it doesn't matter?
It's very high. The one thing that I feel good about here is that you do get a pace up game. Thunder don't run very fast. They have, primarily a bigger lineup in general, and the Pelicans are kind of just a wind sprint team at this point. We don't know if Zion's playing. I guess it would help if yeah, I know, right? I guess it would help if you played, because I do think that would increase the chances of this game staying close. But the thing that I have seen, and I dove deeper into this because you could say that he's had 44 PRA in 6 of the last 7. You can say that he's hit the 30-point number a lot. But specifically, and I think this is important, they're a 17-point road favorite in this game, which is atrocious, obviously. But
yeah, which makes it a little scary for betting an over on SGA.
Sure does. But we've seen that a lot this season with a really, really big sample, that he's played a lot of games where he's not finished 30 minutes. And in the 12 of so he scored 30 points in 12 of 14 total games, but he has been in a spot 9 times where they have won by 10, and he's scored 30 plus points in 8 of those 9 games. So we have seen that with all these injuries to Jalen Williams, Aaron Wiggins, Kenrich Williams, and others, that he's just been really, really, really consistent in games where they've blown out teams.
We have one more question from the chat. JMain34 asking what you're thinking of Trey Murphy.
Yeah, let's go find that spot because I've had some questions about Murphy today. He scored 17 plus in 8 of his past 9, 5 straights. We know Jordan Poole's not a factor right now. I worry about just betting on him in general and finding out that Zion plays in like 2 hours from now. So I think that if you're going to go with Murphy, I think that if you're going there, you're just going to try to bet on points and hopefully you're on the right side of the Zion injury news. I don't like to go with that situation. You're also a 17-point underdog. There's a theory, like you can build cases either way, right? Like if the game blows out, it's probably because Murphy's not getting there. And if the game stays close, it's probably because Murphy is getting there and Zion's not playing. Like you can make cases for either side. I just don't think we should be worrying about guys on the other side of the 17-point blowout.
Always worrying about the NBA injury report. Let's go to Monday Night Football, where we know for the most part who's in and who's out. Trey Tucker over his receiving yards. How come Trey Tucker is the receiving yard prop that we should be looking at?
Yeah, I think that if you look at Tucker, you get a really weird sample size of games this season. Not only is Myers in most of these games, Brock Bowers is in and out of things. They're not trusting any receivers outside of Tucker and Tyler Lockett at this stage, which obviously is scary. Coming off of a really, really tough matchup, box score will tell you that he did not have a good game, but watching the tape will tell you that Trey Tucker had a touchdown last week that was called back due to a pick play that was on Dante Thornton. And obviously, I think that the box score looks a lot different with a touchdown and some more yards in there. You take that, and then you give. You also see that Trey Tucker ran 100% of routes on all of Geno Smith's dropbacks last week, and in a really tough matchup against Denver in a divisional game. Now, you do have somewhat of a track meet with a really high over/under. You know that Dallas, while they've improved defensively, we'll talk about Geno, I'm sure. We don't know what Quinnen Williams and Logan Wilson look like in this defense. And while it's an improvement on paper, they still don't, Quinnen Williams can't defend the wide receiver position, and they're still allowing a ton of huge plays and explosive plays, and they're the worst team against wide receivers in the NFL. So while I think that Dallas's entire defense could look better in a month, they still are really, really, really depleted at the cornerback position.
Yeah, they definitely are. Dallas third most receiving yards a game allowed to wide receivers, just under 171 receiving yards a game. Their quarterback, Dak Prescott, you like him over his completion percentage. That's a very interesting stat to be like handicapping, because I know that you said what Prize Picks, you were able to get that and put that in a Prize Picks lineup. How the hell do you handicap a completion percentage? And why would you choose completion percentage as opposed to completions?
Yeah, it's a great question. I guess number one for me is like, can we, like, the answer is probably yes. But can we actually gauge what the pushback for the Raiders will be in this game? I think that the answer is yes. We can optimistically assume that they keep things within a score. We've seen that go both ways. Where like last week on the show, or I was here with you last week, but 2 weeks ago we had Dallas, Arizona, and me and Matt were kind of just saying like, "Yep, should be a shootout, shouldn't be a problem." And then we saw the Cowboys faceplant on national TV. So I'm hoping that we get a game here back and forth. And I just think that if you're looking at, it's an itch prop, right? So with that said, if you're able to play on Prize Picks, which I know we can on the show, you're looking at this because we have seen the Raiders play one of the heaviest zone defenses in football. It's obviously that they're just in a spot where the talent can lack in some spots on that defensive end. And when looking at defense versus position and like fantasy points allowed per position for the Raiders, you're just seeing a lot of like middling stuff. They are allowing a lot of fantasy points to opposing wide receivers, but the main thing I want to get behind here is that the Raiders have only allowed 22 completions of 20 plus yards, and that is the second fewest in the NFL. So while 22 completions of 20 plus yards might sound like a lot, it's actually not, and it's like averaging roughly 1 to 2 big plays a game given up. If we think that the Raiders are playing this too high shell zone defense, there's going to be a lot of stuff open in the middle of the field, and they're going to try to just not allow some huge plays. I think that Dak is one of the better zone QBs in football. And in terms of games played and actual data sample size of what that looks like in terms of how many, what's Prescott's actual completion percentage against too high zone this year, he's sitting at 73%, which is a top 10 rank in the NFL. And I do think it's value. What did I tell you it was? 67?
67?
Yeah, like coming into a spot where he's 7% better than what the market says. I have pretty good faith in that.
So we both are high on George Pickens tonight because I know CeeDee Lamb is the go-to wide receiver for the Dallas Cowboys. However, we've seen CeeDee Lamb have big weeks the last 3 weeks. George Pickens, he had a down week last week. You're going over fantasy score. You're going over receiving yards. I've got a different play on him as well. How come you're going George Pickens tonight like I am?
Yeah, I just think having CeeDee Lamb back in action, we've seen Pickens be just as consistent as when he wasn't. Now, obviously, the target share is a little bit down. Like Lamb is sitting at 23.5. Pickens is at 21.5. This season, I do think that the main goal here is to just look at how efficient can the Cowboys offense be in the spot, and how do you beat the Raiders. And right now the Raiders have been pretty dang good against the run in terms of yards per carry and not allowing a lot of rushing yards in general. And so if Dallas is going to move the football, they're going to have to do it with their two best pass catching weapons. We talked about the zone stuff. Obviously, George Pickens and CeeDee Lamb are both monstrous against man-to-man coverage. I think they're both just as equally good against zone. I do think that it's not like a super reliable longest reception market, just because I said they like to limit plays. But in terms of Pickens, I think you just rock with the consistency of receiving yards, and I do like him as a touchdown scorer. Lamb just takes away so much attention, and I think that Pickens can thrive in that scenario.
So these last three, between Pickens, Geno, and Ashton Genty, we kind of agree in like our idea behind each player, but we're playing them different ways, except Geno Smith. Okay. I love his passing yards prop tonight. It went from 230.5 to 231.5. He's getting a terrible Dallas D, who has allowed the third most passing yards per game. Geno Smith over his passing yards. How come you went that route as opposed to some of the other markets?
More so of me trying to avoid ways in which things just kind of crumble and evaporate in terms of like if they don't get touchdowns, if they get bad turnover variance. Like there's still a world where Geno could fall under this yard mark, right? But we've seen week in and week out, team is able to just pass in general and on this team. And like I said, while the Quinnen Williams stuff, Logan Wilson stuff is kind of concerning when you're looking at like how beat up the Raiders offensive line is, like that's a way that this could crumble and fall apart. But I still think that Vegas is down a majority of this game in most circumstances and most scripts that you can make. And even if, like, I hate to bring this into it, but like if Justin Fields can do it, like I think Geno Smith can do it, right? So that's my thought process. Still finding ways that, you know, there's, I would say the Raiders failing in this game sits around the 25 to 30% mark. But I think in the other 60 to 70% of that range, there's a real chance this game can shoot out. And Geno, at least in my opinion, has a 275-yard ceiling here.
Lastly, the running back, Ashton Jeanty. People in the chat were looking, do we bet his anytime touchdown prop? But you say we go over his rushing and receiving. I like him in the air tonight. I like the receiving yards prop for Jeanty. However, I have been screwed before, like I did yesterday when it was, I think, Cook for Buffalo.
Sure.
He ended up not going over receiving yards, but he did go over rushing and receiving because he had such a great rushing day. So why are we going to combine rushing and receiving on Ashton Jeanty?
Yeah, that's kind of one of the reasons I like that more, is because I do think he could get there with one or two really big plays through the air or the ground. So I'd like to have my bases covered. And furthermore, they're not using any backup running backs. Like Raheem Mostert gets like 3 touches a game. And I don't think that, and usually when you're betting on Jeanty, you're kind of just in a spot where this script just is never going to look great for rushing and positive offense. It's usually like Raiders are more than 7-point underdogs, and usually things just don't look good from that angle. And they're still finding a way to give him 13 to 15 running back rush attempts, and in games where like the things stay within a score, you're seeing him get the 20+ touch mark as a running back here in this spot. Like I said, Cowboys probably get better on the defensive end, but they still are allowing the 6th most yards per carry to opposing backs. Jeanty, one of the worst running backs in football in terms of getting hit behind the yard line of scrimmage. So like there are things that could get scary. But at the same time, I do think you're seeing him used through the air more, in a spot where you can trust that now. It's not just like 1 to 2 targets a game. He's actually getting like the 2 to 3 reception mark per game. We know what he can do in space. The Cowboys have allowed the 4th most receiving yards to opposing running backs this year, so that definitely helps your standpoint. I just worry about like where the touchdowns go in this game specifically. We've talked a lot about the Dallas guys, but like Trey Tucker can get a touchdown. Brock Bowers, Tyler Lockett could get 2 touchdowns in a matchup like this. And so like Jeanty could get them down the field. Doesn't mean that he will get a touchdown for sure, though.
Well, we appreciate you coming on and giving us all those insights, Jared. Follow him at Jared R. Block on social media, Trinity Analytics, props.cash. That's where he gets all his info, and that's where you could find him giving out all this great info on the NBA and the NFL. Good luck to those bets tonight, Jared. We'll see you again next week.
See ya.
We got so much info there. Wow. I'm like just overly swarmed with all this information. I know that we're going to go over today. So thanks everyone for staying tuned in. We've got propaganda, the most bet on props over at BetMGM. We've got the most bet on anytime touchdowns. I've got my prize picks lineup, and we've got the prop queen edges of the day in Monday Night Football. So let's first get to propaganda. These are the most bet on props over at BetMGM for Monday Night Football, starting with, of course, Brock Bowers over 72.5 receiving yards. Believe it or not, the Cowboys actually haven't been that bad against tight ends. It's mostly wide receivers where they struggle. Cavante Turpin under 1.5 receptions. Tyler Lockett, everyone's loving that one, over 2.5 receptions. They think it's too low. They have got such a great rapport. Okay. Jake Ferguson under 4.5 receptions. I'm going to mention this in prop queen edges. The receptions for Ferguson actually tends to hit in road games in prime time. However, he's not getting much yardage, and that's also where Vegas, they've allowed the receptions to tight ends, but they're not really allowing the yardage. So I'd be very careful of Jake Ferguson tonight. And then George Pickens over his receiving yards. I'm going to take a different route on his over. Clearly, people really like Pickens tonight, which kind of annoys me. I thought CeeDee Lamb would be more public, to which he is when it comes to anytime touchdown. CeeDee Lamb, the most bet on anytime touchdown scorer tonight at plus 110. Javonte Williams, second most. Brock Bowers, third most. George Pickens, fourth most. And Jake Ferguson, fifth most. So if you like to fade the public, Uncle Ted, I am so sorry about Ferguson anytime. So now I've got the prop queen edges of the day. I guess because Mark asked about Geno, we could start with that question. So I actually saw the Geno Smith over 21.5 completions today. So I guess it's up to 22.5, but you had to lay minus 135 on those completions. So Geno Smith, when he's facing a team that is bottom 10 against the pass, in 8 games since the start of last year, Geno Smith is averaging 24 completions, just under 35 pass attempts, just under 275 passing yards, and 2.5 passing touchdowns. His longest pass is averaging just over 32 receiving yards, passing yards per longest throw. So, hold on one second. Prop queen edges for Monday Night Football on now. So if you want to look at some Geno Smith props, yes, you could look at completions, to which he's gone over 21.5, 22.5. He averages 24 completions per game against bottom 10 pass Ds since the start of last year. He's gone over in 4 of his last 6 home primetime games. And Dallas has allowed the 9th most completions per game at just under 23 completions to quarterbacks. However, I'm going the route of passing touchdowns and passing yards as my more favorite ones for Geno Smith. And again, the rush attempts is if you just want to put a prize picks lineup together and you kind of like the handicap. I'm going to show you my prize picks lineup at the end of the show. But Geno Smith, over 1.5 passing touchdowns. He's averaging 2.5 passing touchdowns against bottom 10 pass Ds. 78% of quarterbacks this year have gone over their passing touchdown prop against the Cowboys. Only 2 quarterbacks have not gone over 1.5 passing touchdowns this year against Dallas. He's gone over 1.5, Geno Smith, in 6 of 8 since the start of last year against bottom 10 pass Ds, at home and over in 4 of 5. Dallas has allowed the most passing touchdowns per game to quarterbacks. So that's why I like him over 1.5 passing touchdowns, Geno Smith. Passing yards. He's averaging 275 passing yards a game against bottom 10 pass Ds. The second most, if you're looking at props.cash, and you would see on props.cash, which I'll show you. I'll pull up props.cash right now. Share screen, props.cash, NFL. Let me share the screen real quick. And again, remember, you could subscribe to props.cash using promo code PropQueen, and you get 50% off the first month. So let's just look at, Geno. So when you look at the category over here on the right-hand side, you will see all these categories, and this is historical lines. So this is the lines against the Dallas Cowboys defense, because we're looking at Geno Smith. So the other quarterbacks against Dallas this season, passing yards, 67% have hit. But when you look at passing touchdowns, 78% have hit. So that's the most props that have hit the over against Dallas this year for a quarterback has been passing touchdown. The second most has been passing yards. And then we've got completions, pass attempts, passing long is at 89%. That's another one we could look at, but I just didn't love Geno's numbers for passing long. There was a lot of red there, but 89% have gone over their longest pass against Dallas this year. So these are all things that you could find when looking at props.cash. Thought it was very interesting. So those are some of the most won over props by a quarterback against the Dallas Cowboys this season. So back to here. And then Geno Smith over his 2.5 rush attempts. He's gone over this in all 4 home games this year, 5 of his last 8 home primetime games. Dallas has allowed the second most rush attempts per game to quarterbacks at just under 6 rush attempts per game. So if Geno's under pressure, which we know the Dallas Cowboys apply a lot of pressure. They are number 1 in pressure rate this year. So if there is pressure, he might scramble. But if there is pressure, he also might, Geno Smith, dump the ball off to his running back, Ashton Genty, which is why I'm looking at his over 15.5 receiving yards. Genty's targets have gone up. In the last 5 weeks, he's averaging just over 4 targets per game. He's been pretty explosive too, with a catch for at least 9 yards in 6 straight games. 2 of 4 home games went over this receiving yard prop. Dallas, second most receiving yards per game allowed to running backs at just under 46 receiving yards a game. In fact, 71% of running backs have gone over their receiving yard prop against the Cowboys. Again, Cowboys #1 in pressure rate. So that's just something to keep in mind. If there's going to be pressure up front on that Vegas offensive line, either Gino's going to have to run or he's going to dump the ball off to Ashton Genty. On the other side, we've got George Pickens over his longest reception. That's the way I'm going to play Pickens tonight. It's probably one of my, if not the best bet of the night. He hasn't caught a ball for at least 20 yards since October 19th against Washington. He had a catch for 25 plus in all 3 games against Vegas, Pickens, since 2022. Pickens is averaging just under 29 yards per longest catch in his last 10 road primetime games. And Vegas has allowed the 8th most receiving yards per game to wide receivers. Now, I don't love the CeeDee Lamb play because he's already hit in 3 straight weeks this over, and all things must come to an end. But I have to tell you, because Vegas is so bad against wide receivers, CeeDee Lamb has also gone over 26.5 yards for his longest reception in 9 straight primetime games. 9 straight. So if you think he's going for 10, you could look to this over for CeeDee Lamb in the primetime game spot. Then Dallas's tight end, Jake Ferguson. I'm going to take his under of receiving yards tonight. In road primetime games, Ferguson's gone under in 8 of his last 10, averaging 26 receiving yards per game. Vegas, 7th least receiving yards per game allowed to tight ends. 60% of tight ends went under their prop this year against Vegas. So if you do want to see what I am putting together in a Prize Picks lineup, George Pickens over his longest reception, Jake Ferguson under receiving yards, and Geno Smith over 1.5 passing touchdowns, $260. It ends up making you about $15.60 tonight. So if you want to go over to props.cash, that is another thing that you could take advantage of. Another great deal over at Prize Picks. If you use promo code PropQueen, then you will get play $5, get $50 instantly in lineups using promo code PropQueen. So if you want some of these nice payouts and you want to play with me, you could go to Prize Picks and use promo code PropQueen, use that parlay. But if you don't want 3 legs, because I was contemplating the 3 legs or not, I was thinking of doing Pickens over longest reception and Geno over passing touchdowns and just doing that for like $300 and getting a nice payout on 2 legs instead of worrying about 3 legs. But I figure people like to do 3 legs. So here's a 3-legger for a nice little payout on Monday Night Football. I'm really confident about today, which scares me. I do really like today's Monday Night Football spot. There were a lot of really good props as long as this game does trend a little bit more towards a higher scoring game. Best bet of the day, it is Royal Locks. My Royal Lock of the day is brought to you by Pickett Sports. You can check all of my bets over at Pickett. So subscribe using promo code PropQueen to Pickett. It is free, or you could use Pickett Pro and get access to all these great features like we've showed you on the show, which is being able to find the best numbers on the board. You can find the best numbers in the market. You can also find the best SGP odds. So if you like to SGP things, you could use Pickett Pro and you can put together your SGP through Pickett and it'll tell you where you can get the best payout for your money. So definitely subscribe to Pickett Sports and you can use promo code PropQueen to sign up. Very much appreciated. I am going to post things to Pickett today. I still have to get things posted up there. I have been very busy today. But anyway, my Royal Lock of the day. I'm going with the over on the longest reception for George Pickens, 23.5 yards, longest reception, -115. Again, he hasn't caught a ball this deep since October 19th against Washington. He had a 25-yard catch in all 3 games against the Vegas Raiders since 2022. In road primetime games, Pickens is averaging just under 29 yards per longest catch. Vegas allowing the 8th most receiving yards per game to wide receivers. I have watched Mr. George Pickens many of times in primetime against my Baltimore Ravens, and he loves primetime. So we're going to go with the over on the longest reception prop for George Pickens as my Royal Lock of the night. That's it for me here at the Prop Queen, Ariel Epstein. I will be back Probably Wednesday. I don't think I could do a show tomorrow. I have to move my sister to her new apartment. So I have to be a good sister and help her out, which is going to be very tough to handicap games very well. But we should be back on Wednesday here on the Prop Queen Pod. Collect all of your bets tonight. Happy Monday Night Football. Happy NBA. Happy college hoops. Happy everything. See you in 2 days.